Recording. Does it tell you it's recording?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so yeah, this is the thing is that you start putting Fabliau with video. Next thing it's fix.
Hmm.
Next thing it's OnlyFans. That's the slippery slope.
A
A very
medieval
slippery slope.
Yeah.
a medieval OnlyFans, like I don't know anything about the OnlyFans
Community.
marketing or community or anything like that, but I gotta feel like there is a market for like people who are like, yes, I want to see like,
Okay, so if a thing that I know for all the time, like when I'm like Googling around to try to get manuscript images to like illustrate
hmm
blog posts about medieval sex. Um what I've learned is you really have to put manuscript in, because if you're just like medieval sex, it's just like
This is
that's
the
what it
first thing I
is.
learned.
Yeah, that's what happens. Is it's just like medieval
Yes.
OnlyFans, like a medieval themed OnlyFans is. And I'm always like, you call that a milkmaid outfit?
Mm-mm-mm.
No way. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. That's
That's a
early
lesson
modern at
hard learned.
best.
There
That's
there's
wait.
there is a niche market for a historically accurate medieval you're like all right,
No.
we're gonna fuck quietly while the kids are asleep. Next we're gonna fuck in
Yeah,
a field.
that's
Yeah, that's just
that's
how it
it.
is. Like,
That's
yeah.
it. That's it. That's like bang. Yeah.
Too
Yeah.
much. Yes.
Yeah. I was about to be like, that's where, my career is inevitably heading one day. And then I was like, no, never mind, because you're right. Like that's what it
You can
is.
still do it, but like, when you do the field thing, you just be like, oops,
Oh,
this
oh.
was this was AstroTurf. Whoops.
Oh, well, please don't get me
Don't,
in
yeah.
trouble.
Yeah.
Oh. All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
get the
are we?
feeling that the fields were very much more like the I'm going on a holiday type of situation because you're not in a room with 12 other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
just the two of you. So, that's the privilege
Yeah, so we have
from
this
this
we
game.
have we have a phrase in like British English that is very specifically, it's called a dirty weekend. It's like when you went, and it's like if you go away as a couple, and it's like, like the implication being like you're about to have a bunch of sex, but it's like just the accepted thing that if you go away for a weekend or a long weekend, it's a dirty weekend. And I find it so interesting, like to my originally North American sensibilities, because I'm like, you're not supposed to say it. It's like, what? Oh. And it's like it still makes me be like, get all, shocked every time.
A dirty
Even
weekend.
me. Yeah, I just think
That's
it's
awesome.
really on the nose. It's really, like when Marge and Homer went to the inn.
Yeah.
That's a dirty
Mr. and
weekend.
Mrs. Erotic American,
Exactly. Like I hate that every single thing in my life is just a Simpsons reference, but it is. So,
It's true.
yeah.
It's true.
And that has a lot
Cleo,
to do with medieval comedy.
true. Hello, and welcome back to We're Not So Different, a podcast about how we've always been idiots. My name is Luke, and as always, I'm an amateurish historian. I fucked it up every single fucking time. How do you do that? We're like
That was perfect.
130
What are you talking
episodes
about?
in.
No, no. So this is the anti-Luke
It's
hate club.
fine.
Stop
It's
it.
fine. It's fine. Hello.
Boo.
I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Eleanor Yaniga, who is a medievalist and also my personal hype man.
That's right.
Today, we have an interview, and that means, we don't have a question from one of our patrons today, but we will be back with one next time. Today, we're actually going to be talking about Fabliau and medieval comedy, which isn't really something I know much about, except that Fabliau are, kind of bawdy comic stories that became popular in France during the High and Late Middle Ages. Luckily for all involved, I don't have to do much talking today because we have a guest who can help school me and probably most of you on the subject of Fabliau. So I'm going to introduce our amazing guest and then shut the hell up so she and Eleanor can get down to some real medievalist chat about these sexy tales. Her name is Kleio Pethainou. And
Yes,
she's
close
a
enough.
medievalist, art historian, storyteller, and musician. Hey, yeah, woo, who is currently a doctoral candidate in late medieval manuscript illumination at the University of Edinburgh. She has a podcast called The Court Jester, where she performs and discusses various medieval humor stories, gives public performances of astounding medieval tales, and makes her own mead, which is really cool. Kleio, welcome to the show. How the hell are you?
I am very much humbled by this introduction, and I have to qualify this. I have tried and failed to make my own mead several times. So,
Oh,
You'll get it. You'll get it one time. I
but
promise.
I
You'll get
never
it.
learn, eh? I keep trying.
okay. So I'm really impressed by it anyway. And also, this is an important cautionary tale for me, someone who keeps being like, I could make mead. Right. Yeah. So apparently I can't. So that's good to know.
The
Because
fact that I can't doesn't mean that you can. It just
wow.
means that I can't.
I mean,
So,
one of my mates for my birthday got me this really nice bottle of like the high alcohol mead.
Mhm.
But now I'm having like the problem that I have, which is if someone gives me something really nice, I'm not allowed to use it in my head. Like if someone gives me like a really nice bottle of something, I'm like, oh well, you can never drink it. That's for looking at now.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm having this problem with the fancy mead. With the
No,
fancy
you just
mead.
you
no,
just
no,
gotta
no.
you
Just
just gotta
drink the
drink
mead.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose what we are gonna do before I start asking you questions though, Cleo, is we're gonna be officially the first podcast to congratulate you on passing your Viva.
Thank you.
This girl is almost a doctor.
Almost. We need to
Congratulations.
wait for that email.
We're gonna wait for that email, but the Viva's passed, so
Mhm.
all this other stuff is paperwork. So almost brackets Dr. Cleo. Well done.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, so look, Cleo, let me start you out with a question that is so big that I could just ask you this once and then we could argue all night, which is okay, so when we say, what's medieval humor? I mean, oh, that's what you work on, is it? That's what you work on. Explain yourself, young lady.
Oh,
How about
that's my
that?
Viva all over again.
Yeah, but what if it was fun this time?
What if? It was fun the first time. People were laughing with me, at me. So, for the purposes of my research, so let's keep it very academic. No.
No.
What do we mean when we say medieval humor? Well,
Yeah.
humor is something, some type of message that will make some type of audience or recipient of that message laugh. Okay.
Okay.
So that's how I understand it, and this is how I discuss it. Like there's a message of some type, be it a story, something that you see, something that you read, some type of message that reaches you or a group of you, and the intention of that message is to make you laugh, and you laugh.
Okay.
If you don't laugh, then it's a humor that just didn't work. It happens.
Yeah.
And that is what makes it a very complicated discussion from this point on, because by that definition, you see that you need a message and you need an audience, and ultimately, whether this is successful or not heavily depends on the audience.
Yeah.
Audiences change, so humor changes, and then we go to places where I perform the Fabliau and I need 3 minutes of content warnings.
Oh my God. Well, okay. Well, not on this show. You don't because they're blind.
No.
So okay. So like talking about Fabliau. Okay, right. So like, what would we say a Fabliau is then? So it's like humor is anything that makes you laugh. Within that, what's a Fabliau?
So the Fabliau are a specific genre of stories. Okay, so they're, and I shouldn't even call them stories, but they are narrative. So they're stories, but they're written in verse. So technically, they're poems.
Oh, okay.
They're not exactly written either, because we understand that they were oral tradition until the point that they were written down.
Okay, so like you only get the bangers. It's like only like the ones that are,
I mean,
big.
we have surviving ones. We have like a 160-ish of them. Some of them are very similar to others, but that's roughly the number that has been written down. Presumably there were more of them, like who knows? But it's very evident when you read them from elements of orality within the poems, and the fact that they're in rhyme as well, because it's easier to remember something if you keep repeating it like music. It has a rhythm. So the idea behind the Fabliau is that they were not meant to be read; they were meant to be listened to. Someone was telling them.
Right. Okay.
Someone was performing them. I mean, I don't imagine anyone reading from anything in the 12th century.
Oh yeah.
There must have been a performer somewhere that maybe in universities, yes, but yeah, not the Fabliau anyway. Someone was acting it out for an audience.
So this is kind of like the equivalent of writing down "There once was a man from Nantucket," but like more like
or writing down a stand-up comedy act or something like that.
Okay, right, yeah. So it's like we probably get. Well, that's a really interesting one, right? Because it's like part of me is like, well, I guess that these are probably the most famous things, but it also might just be like whatever the scribe thinks is funny. Because if the scribe is like, oh yeah, that's a banger, like that's like this is where we're doing it. Like in theory, they could just go for it, right?
Which stories survived?
Yeah.
I'm guessing yes, the popular ones.
Yeah.
160 of popular stories. It's still a lot of stories.
That's a lot of stories, right? Like that's a mega mix. That's what,
pretty much.
It would kind of be funny if they weren't the 160 most popular ones. It was just the 160 that like two people kind of liked and wrote down. Yeah. And there are like 800 more that are just like awesome, but the people who wrote them down were like,
what
I
it's
don't like that shit.
Like, what if it was like the equivalent of where you're kind of like trying to create a contrarian mega mix, where you're like, no, I can't have like the obvious choices. I'm going for like the B-sides just to like prove that I really, like I'm going for like the deep cuts of Fabliau to prove that I really know what's up. Right.
Well, I mean, we have most of them are anonymous, and we have the names of 2 or 3 people who we know by name wrote a couple of them. But the rest of them were not assigned to any particular person. So whoever wrote them made the choices, I suppose, but the transcription of them must be fairly close to the original for reasons that have to do with rhyme, basically.
Oh, okay.
Because if it's a poem, then you write it down.
Okay, all right. So next question. So, Fabliau, I'm sure that our clever listeners are going to be like, is that like a fable? And the answer is no. I mean, obviously. But like, what's the difference between a fable and a Fabliau? Is it just that like this Fabliau have a bunch of sex in it and it rhymes, or is it like, what's the difference?
Oh, that's it's not a very straight line from one to the other.
Okay. All right.
When we say fables, we may think of Aesop's fables or classical fables of fairy tales even. I mean, there is a linguistic connection between the two, evidently. But I think the connection is more relevant to the fact that they're stories than to the subject matter.
Right. Okay.
Then, I mean, there has been a suggestion that there is didacticism in the Fabliau, that they're supposed to give you a message, and a lot of them end with a message, but the message is so many times more fun in itself of the same type that it's basically a parody of parodies.
Oh, okay, right. Yeah. So it's like, don't get cuckolded. Like,
don't trust women no matter what you do, because if you do, the devil will take you. I mean, yeah, there is one of those that that were the very early ones in the podcast. That basically describes how. Are we allowed to swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh yeah, of course.
How God created man and woman and created the woman without a cunt. So the devil went there and told God, you forgot something. Now she's useless. What is he going to do with her if she doesn't have anything there? And that God gave the devil permission to give women the first woman cunt. So the devil tried different instruments and decided that the most adequate instrument to create a cant was a spade.
Okay.
So he created the cant with the spade. And then as he left, he squatted in front of the woman's face, the first woman's face, and farted on her tongue. And this story has a moral ending because this is why you should never trust what women say. They speak with the farts of the devil. See,
Come
there is a
on.
message. It's intending to teach you something, but
Oh,
I'm not
man.
entirely
Wow.
sure
I'm
what
learning
that
so
something is.
much. I'm
Call
learning
us-
so much.
It brings new light to the saying, call a spade a spade. Just man.
Well, I for one am enlightened. Okay, no, but this is what I love about medieval humor is that I always end up laughing, but kind of like in a haha, dude, what the fuck way.
Yeah.
Very accurate. Yes.
Where you're like, bro, sure, and I think it's always quite funny. And, I'm always going on about this. Like, all you got to do is like read some Chaucer, and these people are, it's like jokes that 14-year-old boys would make. But they're like, oh,
At
kitty,
best.
we got a kitty.
Yeah, yes, we have a cat.
Hey.
Oh, hello, kitty. Oh,
He
brilliant.
does not like not being the center of attention.
Yeah, Cabbage gets
Mm-mm-mm.
angry and leaves the room. So, it's like a thing. Okay, so we've got these 14-year-old boy type humor. We're doing these Fabliau. So Fabliau, but that like means something, right? So it's this narrative thing. It's this humor thing. So where do these originate? Where are we going to find our good friends?
Right. You can only find them for a limited period of time, from the 12th century until the early 15th, in the north and northwest regions of France. So it's
Okay.
very localized and
Mhm.
also very time specific. They don't go more than a couple of centuries in existence. Are
Right.
you going to leave me do this, cat?
No, no, absolutely not. He's like, I've heard this all before. I'm an expert. I'm back.
They can probably meow you my thesis.
So, okay, this is where we know people are writing it down, but in England and stuff, we've got plenty of French speakers. So, like, no one comes up and is all like, "Hey, Norman, France, guess what? Bada bing, bada boom. I know you're French speakers. You like that?" Or it's just like they're so highfalutin. It's like this is a regional specialty. It's like champagne, but it doesn't travel. Like.
So, I mean, because of when it was written, you can find it throughout Europe afterwards because they're quite catchy. So you can find some of the Fabliau in Boccaccio, you can find them in Chaucer, you can find them in other places afterwards. So they circulated.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, but the start is in the north of France. This is where they begin.
But
I mean, where we have traced them, basically. We haven't really reliably traced them earlier. So when they first were rediscovered, because you can imagine that this was not generally perceived as very high literature in the 17th and 18th century. So people kind of tried to forget they existed. And then they were rediscovered, and then people tried to forget they existed again because they are just too nasty and they don't serve any purpose that fits anyone's political agenda. So they didn't make it into official places until sometime in the 1800s, where people tried to trace the origin of these stories somewhere in India or like in the Far East, but that didn't go anywhere. Then they tried to trace it to Arab countries. That didn't go anywhere either. And then, I mean, now we have only reliably traced them to France, and that's where they come from, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. See, this is very, very funny to me because so you've hit on this particular thing that I think is quite interesting, which is, how we learn about a lot of things historically is like, well, what political use are they? Right. So like, the historiography and stuff, which is that people find things and they're like, oh yeah, I want to dig this out and talk about it because it's going to prove my political point. Right. And for a really long time, the way that the Middle Ages gets used in the historiography, and I mean, like, even in the 19th century, right, is like, oh, like, we must return with a V. Oh, they were so much more religious. They were like more pure. Everyone was just like milking a cow and then going to church, and they loved life and their family, and they didn't, rebel against their lords. And then it's like, here you go. Here's the story about how the devil made a cunt with a spade. You
and
like
that's
that?
not even the worst. Yeah, that's the thing. These stories cannot be used to create any sort of identity, or push an agenda. It's basically all of them are transgressive, all of them, and the point of them is to be that.
Yeah.
So they were scandalous back then. It's not. They're not passed as something that's not supposed to scandalize. They're enjoying the fact that they're so incredibly naughty. That's what they like about themselves.
Okay, so the point is the scandal. Like, the point is to be like the dirtiest that you could possibly be, the worst that you could be. So where do you? Okay, it's an oral tradition. Where? I guess is my next question. Where do you hear this? Like, is this like
where does it get performed?
Yeah, like, is it down the pub? Are we in the courtroom? Like, are we like just in, like, because I can't imagine you being like, hey mom, get a load of this one. Well, but maybe medieval people. Yeah, okay, all right, there you go.
We did think at first that because of the subject matter, people tended to throw the Fabliau into the lower classes, the less educated, the vulgar people that were poor and basically are the people of the stories themselves, peasants. But it looks like you could hear a Fabliau anywhere. You could hear it in the castle, in the presence of the king. You could hear it in the marketplace. You could hear it in the pub. You could hear it anywhere, as long as there's someone to say it, and probably with a hat somewhere to collect, donations from.
Okay, right, yeah.
From the audience.
Well, I think that's really an important point, because I'm always saying this, like, oh, you'd be surprised by like how toilet humor medieval people are, but even I was like, wait, am I wrong about this in that moment? Being like, is this strictly like, tavern, there's this some kind of like modern part of me that wants to pull back and be like, oh, maybe I got this wrong. Oh, kind of deal, right? Like, maybe this is just like, I mean, like, really? The spade cunt story?
It's not just toilet humor. All of it's very, very physical. All of it. If it's not toilet humor, then it's someone who likes his food and his drink too much. Usually when it's food and drink, or it's a woman or a priest that like just cannot control their sexual urges. So, but everything is physical though.
Okay.
You're either hungry or horny, or I don't know, somehow you have some sort of explosive diarrhea and make an absolute mess everywhere. Or
just like me, for real.
Yeah. Sorry.
Look, everybody loves stories about shitting out your doo-doo ass. Like, throughout history, people have.
Okay, so literally on the way back to the flat, I went to have some beers, as is my wont, and we went to stop in at the Billa on the way to get some snacks, and then I pointed out to Justin and started laughing very hard. There was an energy drink that was called, I'm serious, it's called like Charter Bomb. And I was like, haha. And he was like, no, I don't understand what that is. And I was like, Gesharter bomb. And I was like, like shart. And he's like, no,
I'm not getting it.
And yeah, okay. So this is an Americanism, which is the idea of when you go to fart but follow through.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
With you.
And so you can understand why I thought Gesharter bomb was a funny thing to say. And then Justin was heard to remark to me, I am not going to participate in this discourse.
What?
And I was like, that's not fair. That's absolutely not fair.
Things, I'll have you know, this joke would have worked perfectly well in the Middle Ages.
Right? I'm just highfalutin, actually. That's what was happening there. I was just trying to make a perfectly good shit not your dude ass joke.
Exactly.
and getting shut down,
Cleo, I did have a question because I did at least look up what Fabliau was before we did this. And I noticed that there was like a thing that like there was a lot of bacon in it. Like, is that like
damn, they are just like me for real.
Because you mentioned the food earlier, and that like kind of like fired my head because I looked at it and it's like, I saw this line that said like bacon is the most common food in there, and I just thought that was kind of interesting there. Like everybody's just like, yeah, bacon's cool. Anyway, here's this story about a guy shitting too much.
So there is a lot of food in general. There's a lot of ham, which is I'm assuming what they meant by bacon.
Okay.
There's also, I mean, all types of really tasty stuff that you can eat. There's a particular one that made an impression to me because it's not very usual in my life, but someone got punished. I mean, someone got punished by their bishop, and the bishop, as punishment, forbade him to eat goose.
Oh, that's rough.
Like makes you think, how often were you eating goose anyway? Like,
yeah,
dude.
like
I'm like, oh no, not goose.
Oh my God. No. He was devastated. So he went back to the mistress and said, you know what happened? This is what he did. He told me never to eat goose again. I said, well, fine, but he didn't tell you not to eat gander, which is a male goose. So we'll have that now.
There you go.
Okay, but you guys are you're really invested in your birds there. But there's always there's a lot of different foods, and usually when there's when food is a butt of a joke, there's a lot of it and a variety of it, and it's like, I don't know, it could be Christmas and it's a feast, or it could be someone's visiting and they go overboard and they have cookies and cream and I don't know, the equivalent of whatever you can think of. But yes, there's a lot of ham as well.
That's cool. Yeah. Well, I will
that's very French.
I'll have to write the Wikipedia people and tell them that this bacon thing, they need to cut that shit out. It's actually ham.
It's ham.
Cool. Yeah, that's all I had about that. You just mentioned the food and I was like, yes. And everybody loves like hearing about food. Like you get like a story, you get like a nice little story, and everyone, and you talk about the sex, and then you're also like, and then they had like this entire spread, and you're like, yeah, man, I really want some like a trencher of bread to dip in this stew, like so fucking bad. Like that's all I want.
Like, have you ever seen Hieronymus Bosch's painting The Land of Cocaine? Like cocaine used to be this an idea of a fantasy island where like everything is food. Like, so like we get the term cocaine now from being like, oh well, everything, oh yeah, the mystical fantasy place. And it's like this Hieronymus Bosch painting where people are just like passed out because they're like eating ham that just like walks up to them with a knife, and there's like a little soft boiled egg that already has a spoon in it with like little feet, and they're just like
serving itself. Yeah,
serving itself, and they're like rolling around on the floor just blissed out.
The best meat's in the rump. The ham's
exactly.
walking up to you.
Yeah, and it's like, what if the ham walked up to you? And it's like, so it's meant to be, and it is funny, but it's also kind of like, like don't get too blissed out on ham, kind of deal, which we've all been there.
I've eaten too much ham, during the holidays. It's happened, you're just like, well, no more ham for a little while. Got the ham sweats.
That's a real thing.
It's a real thing, yeah.
Okay,
so the most infamous ones about eating are the priests, basically, and mostly because if you think about it, they were the ones that should be more reserved in general, and they're the ones that are supposed to be observing fasting as well and not eat on certain days and blah blah blah. And usually, what you will have is a priest that is none of these things.
Oh,
get their asses, get them,
got them, nailed to the wall.
Well,
I mean, that's effective satire, though, right? It's like going after people with power. So there is that.
And it's actually not even subtle. I mean, characters inside the stories actually have a go at priests on occasion to say, like, you're the guys that go around and forbid everyone from having any fun.
Yeah, get their asses.
And now here you are.
Yeah, they've taken it past the realm of satire, and it's just like, no, this is just blank social commentary about how
Yeah.
these guys kind of suck. Don't you know that priest in your town you hate, or your cousin's priest in the other town that he hates? Yeah, those guys suck.
Always,
Yeah.
it's the equivalent of you don't know them, they go to another school because they're always from a nearby village, you know?
Oh man,
There
that's
is a
great.
village very far away from here. You don't know where they are. It's really far away. You haven't heard of it. But they have a
Yeah,
priest, and
yeah,
this is what he did.
Not our
yeah,
priest.
yeah.
You're cool, Jerry.
Not our
Yeah.
You're
priest.
fine.
He's fine. He's fine.
He's fine.
Yeah,
I
Like
we
didn't
three
love
villages.
him. Yeah, but it was one of these other priests. Oh, yeah,
Oh,
right.
that
Yeah.
guy.
Oh, am I right? The
And Jerry's
exception
like
that proves the
pulling
rule.
Jerry's pulling his collar. He's like, fuck
Okay,
you, Jerry.
like,
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I know, but I love that too, because this is another really interesting thing, because it kind of shows why we don't oftentimes get to hear about Fabliau, because, you know, again, it serves our purposes to ignore stuff like this, right? It serves our purposes a lot of the time to be like, oh yeah, and everyone was very beholden to the church. Everyone, you know, they just did whatever the priest says and all this stuff, and and it's like, and these guys are like, and then I said, fuck Jerry, not my priest Jerry, fuck Jerry 3 towns over, and you know, and it's
We're making it sound more improv than the stories, but at the same time, these stories were first of all, they're the ones that arrived to us. So we don't know that improv of this type wasn't happening anyway.
Right.
2, we only know these that survived. We don't know that there weren't any others. And 3, when it comes to church and church going in the Middle Ages, it was a very social,
Yeah.
I mean, endeavor, right? And priests, when they were doing sermons, they were not using Fabliau, naturally not. They were using humor though.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they were
True.
trying to make it entertaining as well. So I don't know, it's a segue into something really nastier. I'm not suggesting exactly that.
Okay, so like, I guess this brings me on to my next question, which is like, well, who's performing these? Like, so, you know, priests can do humor too, you know, like everyone's, I think, you know, anyone who's ever been to any form of like Christian sermon, you know, is familiar with like the priest joke. You know, there's always some priest joke in there, and then like that's up the safe end of things. But so who's performing the outrageous stuff? Like, is this troubadours? Is it just like some guy? Like, what's going on here?
So the short answer is I couldn't tell you with certainty. But because they weren't, I mean, I wouldn't. Any type of performer is my answer to this. Any type of performer who knows how to say them, to tell them, would tell them.
Okay.
Would be very intriguing if we knew anything about them being told over music or accompanied by music, because they are in rhyme, so that would be absolutely awesome. But we don't know anything about that either. So I'd say anyone who performs for an audience and can't remember a Fabliau would probably do it for a buck.
Okay, right. Yeah. So it's like, and that's interesting too, because it's like there isn't this kind of like sorting into higher or low humor. You know, you might be like, anyway, here's the spade cunt story, and anyway, here's Wonderwall. You know, like just you know, one after the other, just like take a break. You know.
I mean, we have names of some of them, and since we know their names and they were written down by people by name, and they claim authorship of these things, then at least we know that someone thought them, wrote them, and presumably also performed them, because it doesn't feel like the kind of thing that you write and give to someone without doing it yourself. You know, you also do it, and then someone else might hear it and do it again. But for all the other things that we don't have a name for, it makes perfect sense, because most of them are really short as well.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So it is very,
they're like 4 minutes. So yeah,
interesting.
close.
So not so far off. Once was a man from Nantucket, but you know, okay. All right. Okay. So I guess then to you've already hit on a couple of these. So it's like the priest's eaten, you know, like something about you're going to go to hell. Like what are the big kind of tropes? Like, what are some Fabliau tropes that we get?
Okay. So the staples,
Mm-hmm.
the husband and wife, and who's the boss in the household.
Okay.
And basically who wins in the power struggle between husband and wife, because there's a permanent power struggle there. Then you have the cuckolded husband, usually because his wife is sleeping with someone else, very often a priest.
Nice.
And they get some really nasty punishments when they get caught. Then you have you have any sort of situation that will require a very quick wit to get out of. You have priests that do all the wrong things. You have women that like sex a bit too much and then are very, very smart, so they manage to get away with whatever it is that they did. You have some fairy stories that have magic items or magic abilities or like some sort of weird gifts. For example, there is a ring that gives you a permanent erection.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And by chance, it was found by a bishop who found himself in a very uncomfortable situation afterwards because he didn't know how to make it stop.
Oh, I love it. Okay. Yes.
Oh man, a literal cock ring. There you go.
It's a cock ring. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
You have all sorts of parodying of whatever chivalric stereotype you can imagine. You have the knight who goes in the forest and he wants to help the ladies that are there, and the ladies are evidently fairy, so they give him the gift of speaking to cunts.
Nice.
So yeah, and the cunts reply to him with human words. And so yes, this goes places very quickly. But you have all the courtly stereotypes of the established high literature that get thrown in the gutter. You have social satire of any type. You don't find satire against kings.
Interesting. Okay.
You don't find satire against very high members of the clergy. But the lower and medium social strata of the social hierarchy, they are completely destroyed.
So that's interesting. I mean, I guess I'm imagining that the reason why you're not allowed to do it about, the Pope and the King writ large is like, well,
too much in the face.
Yeah, you like, who are you? And you'll get in trouble, right? Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that gets your head on a spike.
Wow.
Yeah, they do. Well, I mean, they had like a self-imposed censorship regime, so nothing bad. So like nothing bad happened to them. They were like, look, I don't have jester's privilege, so I can't say that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yet, my lord, I've got this other one about Jerry the priest. What about now?
The archbishop? No, he's off limits. Jerry, fuck you.
Fuck Jerry.
But there is another guy 3 cities down.
Yeah, just whoa. I'll tell you what, not you, King. I'm talking about the king of Frisia.
He goes to another school. No, you wouldn't talk about kings though. But it's that's also the very fascinating thing about the Fabliau, that they're in many ways, possibly without even intending to, because they just take inspiration from whatever happens around them. So they don't intend to be a mirror of lives in the cities, but they do end up reflecting exactly how a life in the city in the 12th, 13th, 14th century was, because those characters there, I mean, it's drawn to absurdity and it's exaggerated as much as it can be. But if you take out the exaggeration and the very obvious absurdity, what remains is a very interesting mirror on everyday life, which is something we don't really have much info on. Because no one really wrote about it.
That's a really good point. So, like, have you got any favorite little glimpses that you found in the background there?
Oh, I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, sorry. That's one to spring on you. Sorry.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that because it's a lot of them. But yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay, so now I think I know like one Fabliau character, and I think this is a Fabliau. Correct me if I'm wrong. But are there like any there's like Reynard the Fox, right? Like I think I've read some like Reynard's stories, and like Reynard is always doing that thing of like getting into a scrape. He gets into a scrape and then he like gets out quickly. And it's like some of them, the punchline is like, and then he raped Mr. Wolf's wife. Ha ha. Ha.
So,
and you're like, oh, that's
I mean this is okay. The stories, the epic, I don't know, the stories, the epic, call it what you want, of Reynard the Fox is a different thing altogether. It doesn't
See, I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's why I got you on.
You do know what you're talking about because it's relevant, but it's not the same thing. Yeah. So, the stories of Reynard the Fox, they call it also the Reynard epic, because it's a collection of stories, and the protagonists are not human. They're animals. So Reynard is a fox, then you have Isedrin the wolf, then you have the rooster, and then you have the donkey, and then you have lion, who is the king of animals, and all of it. There is a strong element. Sorry, I have to let the cat out.
That's absolutely fine. Cat's gotta go
there is
out.
a strong element of symbolism there, because there's symbols about each animal that also include specific character traits, and they end up being, to an extent, personifications of virtues or vices. So it becomes a bit different. But yes, the type of humor is very much the same. And Reynard is infamous for his trickery, among other things. So he is the archetypal trickster that will play pranks left and right and has no morality. You find trickster characters in the Fabliau. Most of them are very flexible on their morality.
Nice.
I'll put it this way, and this is a very diplomatic way of putting it. Well, I mean, yeah, you don't get easily such a blunt, and then he raped someone's wife, just like that. But then at the same time, you have a very flexible concept of what consent is, for example. So
yeah, that's the Middle Ages. Yeah,
it is the Middle Ages. Yeah, so they don't. Yeah, they don't understand what that is, and sometimes they will be kind and ask you, but it will be assumed that you want this thing to happen to you, and if you don't want this thing to happen to you, then you're a woman, so suck it up.
Yeah. Okay. So like today, sorry, just to interrupt. I was doing I was reading from The Art of Courtly Love, as is my wont, and there's like this whole thing where Andreas Kapelanis is talking about what you owe each other in relationships, and like whether, so he's got these two ways of talking about relationships. It's like you can have a pure relationship, which is you just do sodomy, so like no penis and vagina sex, or you can have a mixed so that's pure love, and then mixed love is when like you fuck, right? And then he's like, is it acceptable, say you get into a relationship, because these are all extramarital, and you agreed that you're only going to do pure love, and then one of the other partners wants to do mixed love, and you said that you weren't going to do that. And he's like, well, if you were really in love, you have to do whatever they say. And then he was like, but okay, there's an exception to this, which is at the beginning you both agreed that you were only going to do pure love, so like no fucking. And he's like, except if the man really is still sad later and he still really wants it, and then you have to do it anyway. And I'm like, so basically you said a lot of words right on the way to, but if the guy wants to fuck, you have to.
Yeah, basically the concept of blue balls is as old as time.
Yeah, and it's like, like what if he was sad? But what if he looked at you sad?
He gets sad.
And then you're like, and it's like, well, that's your, and it's specifically like, okay, well, you shouldn't deny anything you want to the person that you're in love with. And they kind of like it's a two-way street. And then it's like, unless you both made the commitment. And then if you both made the commitment, it's a one-way street, but only if the guy is sad. So it's like, if it's like, no, we both made the commitment, and the chick is like, no, come on, I really want to. And then it's like, oh, well, no, she's nasty. Right.
Yeah. She is. Yeah. That's what women are like.
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of see this everywhere, but it's like, and maybe, I don't know, maybe The Art of Courtly Love is, maybe it's supposed to be funny. Possibly. I mean, it is funny at times. But it's like that, there's no kind of like real understanding of consent. It's like, well, you're in this situation, so you knew what you were getting into.
In the Fabliau, the women who do not consent are generally those that are are given to marriage to someone and are not even asked.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
The rest of them really like it and basically go out, oh, or are very young. There's this harrowing one with that. I don't know how I'm going to say it convincingly to anyone because basically the priest has been taking care of a widowed mother and her daughter, and the daughter turns 12, and the priest decides that's a good age.
Mm. Ah.
So, mother, how much
Oh.
money do you want for your daughter? Which
Ugh.
starts, yeah, exactly. So the mother has to devise an entire scheme to make him think that this was the daughter, and in the end, it's not the daughter.
Mm.
So you get a glimpse into some of these things that, I mean, I'm not saying that it's entirely drawn from life, but I'm saying that it's not something that is unlikely to have happened.
Right. Well, I mean, interestingly, because it's like, well, that there you go. We're not so different. There's one thing that hasn't changed. It's the way that we talk about priests. So, oof. Woo. Child.
Ew.
Yeah, that's a
And what I find fascinating is that I think if I'm not mistaken, it also mentions the age that she's like 11, 12 thereabouts, and she just started to turn woman, and the priest was, oh, she's young and fresh.
Oh God.
I mean, like at least they're playing it for laughs, right? Like at least they're saying, okay, yeah, like this is a bit young, and the mom is like,
I mean, for me, what saves it is that the mom listens to this and she says, no, 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 no,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
not gonna happen. Because you have 15-year-olds that are horny and run in the fields and just find a guy and just go fuck the guy.
Yeah.
15-year-old chicks, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's not 12, it's 15.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
ran away and she went looking for it, and it's not
Yeah.
the same thing.
At least they're pubescent, I guess. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking for any port to storm here. Like,
Oof.
help.
Man.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
this is why I need so many content warnings, because it's really hard to tell these stories to the ether, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's without context. It's just brutal. And I
Mm.
mean, on the other hand, I'm thinking as well, you don't know who is listening,
Mm.
and
yeah.
you don't know what they're going to do with it without context.
Right. No,
Yeah.
you're
And
totally right. Yeah.
we're living in the age of undue hate.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
true.
You don't want to give people historic validation for being assholes.
Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting, right? Because that is the thing where it's like this is here, this thing that will happen, but everyone kind of agrees, like kind of the humor that's happening here is like this priest is out of pocket, right? This priest is like acting up and wilding out. It's kind of like part of it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. This is kind of the trouble with comedy always, right? Is it's like, well, you can have a meaning for it as the person that's delivering the joke, but whether or not your audience is going to listen to that, that's another thing, right? Or they can always take things in whatever context they're going to take it, right?
And the older the humor, the more you need to work to recreate that context.
Mm.
Because some things just do not translate culturally.
Mhm.
You can try and crack that joke, you can try and tell that story, but they're 800 years old,
Yeah.
Some of the social parameters have changed so much that in many contemporary audiences, more than half of these stories will just make people cringe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Makes
So you have
sense.
to tell them that this was a different world, so take your contemporary hat off, put another hat on, and let's get medieval.
yeah, exactly.
Ah.
Oh, yeah, there it is, baby. Like, so I guess I'm kind of like, have you heard the world's oldest joke? This is one that I just want. I'm like googling it here to try to get it. So it's like the world's oldest joke is about a dog walking into a bar. I'm trying to get it up. It's like Mesopotamia. We have it's on cuneiform.
That is familiar.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
say it.
yeah, sorry, I'm trying to dig it up now. This is really good work, Eleanor. So it is sorry. I'm trying to get it here. Everything is coming up in these things. I've heard it before, but it doesn't make any sense to us. Okay. So it's like a dog walks into a bar and says, I can't see a thing. I'll open this one.
Yeah, woo!
Right?
Got it. Good
Right?
joke, everyone. Good times,
Woo!
everybody.
And
High
so
five all
there
it's
is
around. Good job.
there
yeah.
is something in there what we don't know.
But yeah, so
We're
it's like
missing something. There's a link that's missing.
yeah, and it's like it's kind of the setup that we have where you're like, okay, all right, a dog walks into a bar and we're like, okay, I'm
Okay,
ready.
okay.
I'm ready. Uh-huh. I can't see a thing. I'll open this one. And you're like, what does that mean? And no one really understands what it is yet. It is from like 1800 BC, so fair enough, right? Like, the cuneiform joke. But like my point is, I guess that my point is here is that humor isn't actually universal, right?
No,
So
no.
it's not like I will sometimes laugh at medieval things. Yeah, like I'll be like, okay, word, that's quite funny. So like when I read Chaucer, I often laugh.
Yeah.
At these kind of things, like I think it's quite funny to like watch him try to get out of this scrape and things like that. So there are certain things that kind of are at least fairly universal because we are still within the same culture and context, but it's like whatever was going on over in Mesopotamia, I'm like, oh,
No idea.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what they had in their bars,
Yeah, like what is that? What is that? I don't know.
I do find it interesting the things that do carry over. Like in this, like you like have a dog walked into a bar joke. Like 1900
That is
years, like
impressive.
not only is it like X walked into a bar, three priests walk in, so and so walks into a bar. It's also an anthropomorphic animal doing something. Like these things that go back and like when you're talking about the Fabliau stuff, you're talking about you're saying like, you have to, it's divorced from context and blah blah blah. But when you say it to me, the thing that I hear is like that, like these sound like stories like you would kind of like jokingly tell, or like kind of like bawdy jokes you would make when you were in like college, like oh yeah, there was this guy, and this happened, it's kind of like it's I know it's not an urban myth or an urban legend, but it is kind of reminiscent of that, because like you might not want to because your friend, if you were trying to tell like a funny story, you wouldn't want to be like, well, I did this, because your friends were like, no you don't, we go to school with you, but you're like, oh yeah, my cousin told me about someone he knows that did, and and it's just like and so I mean, I obviously get what you're saying with the context, you need that, but at the same time, like when we're talking about this like Sumerian joke or these things from the Middle Ages, I look at it and I'm like, well, wow. I mean, like those stories and everything, these are the same jokes that we make now. The same types of jokes that we make now. They obviously, the context has changed broadly, but like still, kind of like a knock, like a knock joke or whatever, kind of thing. Yeah. So that, I mean, that when y'all talk about it, that's kind of what I hear, but
Oh yeah,
It is
completely.
recognizable, yes.
Yeah.
Because essentially it plays in the same, a lot of the material plays to the same stereotypes. I mean, we have cultural affinity. We're not the same culture, but we're not exactly completely divorced from it.
Yeah.
So you understand a joke that plays with gender dynamics. You understand a joke that plays on female sexuality that is rampant. You understand someone who likes his food or his wine or money too much and will just go to extremes to get what they want.
Yeah.
They're recognizable patterns. It's just that they're also misogynistic,
Yeah.
ableist, and
Yeah.
many other things that do not necessarily fit comfortably with what they do. They're extremely violent sometimes as well.
Okay, so all right, this is kind of bringing me up to, this is like a last question, but I assume this might go for a while because like, what's some of your favorites? Do you have some tell me your favorites. Faves.
I have a favorite.
Of course.
And my favorite is also the first one I read, which gave me that reaction that you were talking about, the reaction that I'm laughing, but what the fuck? And it is the squirrel. It's the Fabliau of the squirrel.
Okay.
I don't know if it's one of the most popular ones, but it is adequately absurd.
Okay.
And I'm sensing that you want to hear it.
Yeah,
I
tell me
do.
the
I
tell me the
want to
squirrel.
hear
Yeah.
it.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to shorten it for the purposes of this podcast, not
All
go
right.
into the extreme details, but essentially you have a young girl that it's spring and everything is flowering and the bees are buzzing, and this girl is also buzzing because she's 16 and things happen when you're 16.
Mhm.
And so she's in the fields with her mom, and her mom is giving her advice because now, the daughter has turned 16, so she needs to know how to be in the world. So the mom says, well, you shouldn't speak out of turn. You shouldn't speak with words that are not appropriate. You shouldn't speak idly. You shouldn't speak if you can help it. Generally,
Just don't talk.
yes, I mean, tone yourself down as much as you can, but be very careful, especially do not use a word that describes the thing that men have between their legs.
Okay. All
What do
right.
they have, mama, between their legs? As the
Yeah.
girl. So, well, I'm not telling you because we can't tell the word. What do you mean? Like, does my brother have it? Yes. And does my daddy have it? Yes, he does. And what do they do with it, mom? Do they go fishing with it?
Ah.
No, honey. No, no, honey. They don't go fishing with it. They do other things with it. Okay, but tell me the word.
Mhm.
And so after significant persistence, the mother says the word, and the girl gets super excited and starts running in the field, screaming the word penis, 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 penis to the flowers, and evidently gets overheard by a guy who is passing by
Mhm.
and sees a young girl running in the field shouting penis, 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 and thinks, okay, I have one. So
Oh, so this is
let
an invitation.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, let's see what we're gonna do with this. So he walks up to the girl and he's asking her, what is it that you're talking about there? And she says, well, I'm saying penis because it's the thing that men have between their legs. And he says, well, no, I don't. I have a squirrel. Oh, yeah, the girl is super excited. And I touch it. Yes, of course you can touch it. Oh, here you go. And so the girl touches the squirrel and starts exclaiming, oh, it's so fluffy. It's so big and fluffy. Oh, and it has eggs. I didn't know squirrels lay eggs. And they're fuzzy too. Oh, it's so nice. But tell me, is it trained? Will it eat from my hand? What would you feed the squirrel, honey? I would feed him nuts, but I don't have any nuts because I ate them all. So that's unfortunate. So the guy tells her, well, if you just ate the nuts, the squirrel can find them because he will go through your cunt and, mission accomplished. I said, yes, 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 let's feed the squirrel. So we eagle spread the girl in the fields, and the squirrel goes digging, and she starts encouraging the squirrel. And this is the most fascinating bit of the poem because in rhyme, she's encouraging the squirrel to go digging harder, deeper, faster to find all the nuts. And then she stops him because he ate too many nuts and he threw up.
Ah.
And they also broke the eggs. Everything's covered in egg white now.
Oh my gosh, that's so visceral. I love it. Okay. I love medieval people.
This is the story of the squirrel that I read as a master's student when I was trying to figure out whether I want to do a PhD in medieval humor in text and image.
Oh.
What is happening here?
You never had a
Delightful.
chance. You never had a chance, girl.
Delightful.
Like,
I need to know more about that stuff now.
I mean, everything I like everything about this too because it's kind of like it's playing on these ideas of like, oh well, women are silly but horny.
Also horny.
Yeah, like silly but horny. And like credulous, just like, oh yeah, I guess this is what we're gonna do now. Like
the thing is, he knows what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't exactly know what she's doing, but she knows she wants it because it's implied in all this that she doesn't know anything about sex, but she actually really, really wants this.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's like she doesn't know what she wants, but she wants it.
Yeah, but
and
she
it's
doesn't
like,
want this. Yeah.
Yeah. Huh.
And that, whole situation about the fuzzy eggs and how they broke and how the squirrel threw up, it's just beyond me. It's
like, that's incredible. That's incredible. Right? Because that's like a twofer. That's a twofer because it's like there's the squirrel throwing up and the eggs breaking.
Everything's covered in egg white. See? Oh my God, what have we done?
Now there'll be no more little squirrels at Christmas or whatever. I don't know why I said at Christmas.
Evidently, the squirrel found the nuts, so everything's happy. Everyone's happy, I guess.
Fine. It's fine.
Oh my God.
Wow.
I'm glad.
Broke you.
I'm glad that the double entendre squirrel trying to get a nut goes way, way, way back.
Truly, we're not so different.
Jesus Christ.
No, we're not.
Great.
I mean, I was so traumatized by this, but that when I moved into the house that I currently live in, I went and had a custom made door knocker in the shape of a squirrel.
Yes!
And now whoever wants to come into my house has to bang the squirrel.
Yeah.
And if you know, you know.
There you go.
Oh man. See, like that one right there, you like that easy medieval OnlyFans right there. Like that is just easy peasy. Like,
yeah, that's just a script.
Not 16 anymore. We've aged up everything because that's a bit too weird. Otherwise,
aged up to
otherwise, yeah, you can just not like that's like just knock that shit out.
My gosh.
I understand there's work involved in it, and it's much more complicated than that. I'm just saying.
But I'm just saying that's a script.
Also,
it's a script.
Traumatizes you so deeply. You have to let it out at some point.
Yeah.
Charles, the next thing you know, the type of Fabliau got you ordering a squirrel door knocker. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Delightful. That is delightful.
Love that.
I love it. I can't, I don't. I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't have anything to follow up.
I think that we're just going to have to leave it there because what are we supposed to do with this?
I don't know.
I got to sit down and think about life.
I'm sorry I did this to you guys.
You do not need to apologize. I'm not kidding. That is literally delightful.
Whoa.
Well, there's more where this came from in my podcast.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's too.
Check it
come
out.
Come on, girl. Give me your plug, Kleio. Where can the good people find you?
Yeah.
In all the good places for podcasts, I think. It's definitely on Spotify. I'm also putting it on YouTube, but just audio. I'm trying to do it weekly. I'm doing my best to do it weekly, so it's one story per week.
Heard that.
It has a lot of content warnings if you don't know what you're getting into. So yeah, I can't expect people to know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course not.
It's called the Court Jester. It has a logo of a court jester's hat that is not fancy at all.
Yeah.
And it also has a Patreon page for those that want to help me get some sense of achievement from all this.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Yes. Subscribe to the Court Jester, people.
Yeah, subscribe. Right. Give me 5 stars if they have stars to give me.
That's right. Rate it, review it, support it. That's what we're here for.
Yeah. Well, Kleio, thank you so much for coming on the show. This was truly wonderful. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me.
Seriously, just thank you, and we're glad to have you on. The stories are great. As for our plugs, normal stuff for me.
Normal stuff
Luke is
for
amazing. Me. Yep. Just check us out wherever. But everyone, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't crush any squirrels out there.
Oh, jeez.
Don't break the eggs.
Oh, man.